So was it a stroke? Was it a seizure? Is it dementia? Is he a robot? What about the lady in green? These are all questions that have been asked over these past few days. Unless you're living under a rock, you saw on national TV our Senator Mitch McConnell absolutely just freeze like a deer in headlights mid sentence. And it has a lot of people, not only in the healthcare community, but even outside of the community, talking, saying, hey, what did we witness? And is this something we need to be concerned about? So, for those who may not know, quick little background. Mitch McConnell is an 81-year-old senator here in the country of the United States of America, and a part of the Republican Party who's been very big, especially of late, of asking the question, hey, what about age? And of course, you would think, and what can I say? You would think the party that is focused on age and concern for health wouldn't have their leader looking like he may be on one side or the other. So we're going to see a video today of Mitch McConnell freezing at the podium when he was about to give a speech to the United States of America. And I want you guys to tell me, what do you think? Because there's been conflicting differentials, what we like to say in medicine. I think it was a TIA, which is a mini stroke. And the reason why I think it's a mini stroke, one, because he was able to eventually snap out of it, which we'll see in the video. But two, the fact that it looked like all of the symptoms of a person who've had a stroke. And you may be asking Dr. Pierre, what is a mini stroke? Again, when we talk about these TIAs, again, I don't like to call any stroke a mini stroke, because I don't want a mini stroke. I definitely don't want a big one, but I definitely don't want a small one either. So when we talk about the TIA, the transient ischemic attack, what that is it's almost like a fake out. If let's here in the listening community, I like to simplify things as much as possible. It's like a fake out. It gives you all of these signs and symptoms of a person who's having a stroke. But when I go to scan you head to toe, guess what? I don't find anything. Because what happens is the blood flow that was blocked off while you were having these symptoms of a stroke returns quick enough so you don't have any tissue that's dying. And when we're trying to separate the two, hey, TIA versus an actual stroke, it's when you have tissue death occurs. But I talked to quite a few people, neurology colleagues, of course, and they say, hey, you know what, Dr. Pierre, I think it may be a seizure. Like, I think he might have had a seizure. Now, I'm never going to argue with a neurologist because they know what they're doing. But there's a lot of people on a whole bunch of sides, right? And I joked in the beginning, but there are a lot of people who are like, hey, this may be dementia. There are others, are like, hey, this guy must be some robot, especially when you check out the lady in green. So, you know what? Let's just skip to the formalities. Let's watch the video and you tell me what you think, and then we'll come back and talk in a little bit.
Cooperation and a string of
watch the lady in green. They zoom into his face and he's blanked out. He's not saying a word right now. The clock is still ticking, still not saying a word, just staring off in blank space, and the people are behind him like, hey, what's going on? Now they're saying, let's go back to the room. So that was Mitch McConnell, our senator, Republican senator, 81 years old, who gets up to a podium, which he's done quite often. Like, this is not his first rodeo. So it wasn't stage fright. He's done this a lot. But to get there and to absolutely freeze, as a medical professional, I am extremely concerned for quite a few different reasons. One, here's a guy who, you know what? He might have had a stroke on national TV, and no one is screaming, or I don't, hopefully they wouldn't scream, but no one is, it looks like they're concerned. They're like, hey, you know what? Do you have anything else to say? They just make it seem like, and this was a conspiracy theory, not necessarily a conspiracy theory, but this is what someone on my TikTok following says. Hey, you know what? They looked at him like, oh, he's doing it again. Like they weren't shocked that he was essentially frozen, loss of words. So that's why I'm thinking, all right, I think this might have guy had a stroke. But when I talk to my colleagues, especially neurology colleagues and just people in general, they say, hey, it could have been a seizure as well. Because a lot of times when we look on TV, we think of the seizure as what we call the tonic-clonic seizure, where you're like, a lot of fidgeting and moving and shaking. That's for a lot of people's mind what a seizure looks like. But it's not uncommon to have seizure-like activity and you to be absolutely frozen, just kind of staring into space. So that's why some people think, this guy might have had a seizure. Now, of course, when we're trying to diagnose whether you have a seizure, there's testing, there's EEGs that need to be done. You're not doing an EEG right there, but you're just kind of visually looking at a person who is essentially lost for words. Now, I think the category is very interesting as well. Yes, he is 81 years old, and no, we're not giving him a medical diagnosis, but dementia is right there. And the reason why dementia is right there for a lot of people don't realize that your patients with advanced dementia, a lot of them don't speak. And you may be wondering, hey, what in the disease process causes patients with dementia not to speak? It's literally because they forget how to. And that may sound wild, especially if you're young and you can speak and that's not a problem. But imagine if you have a disease that obviously attacks your memory, makes you forget things. Now, this is not just you're going to forget your birthday, or you may forget your wife's name or forget your family, which I see. No, I'm forgetting words, meaning I can't speak. So I'm just going to stare off into space. And yes, it typically is more chronic. Like you're not going to be able to say 1,000 words and then for 10 seconds not say it. But it's not shocking to have a loss of words and then a loss of train of thought and not know where you're at. So when you look at that video, not only did he have this loss of train of thought, but this was really like a deer in headlights. It's almost as if he had no clue what was going on. And until the person behind him, who I don't know who that congressperson is, until that congressperson behind him steps in and gives him a tap, like he is sitting there. He's probably going to sit there, who knows for how long. And now, again, you don't watch this channel here to hear any political commentary. So, of course, I have to put my little medical spin on it. But I would be worried if I was his family member. I would be worried if I was his healthcare provider that I might have witnessed my patient either suffer a stroke, suffer a seizure, something happened. Now, conspiracy theorists alone, because I get plenty of those on this channel, they're going to talk about that lady with the green and him being a robot and all these things there. I'm not really going down that path. That's not a path I want to go to. Y'all know me. I try to steer away from the conspiracy theories. But it is interesting when you think about the other differentials, dementia, stroke, seizures. It's very interesting. And it's one of those things where again, obviously we don't want to learn by example, but it's much easier to see something happen, especially in the national stage, and be like, oh, that's what that is. Because I can assure you, especially if you watch that live or you just watch the clip like you just did, you're not going to miss that. And if your family members, your co-workers exhibit symptoms like this, you're going to hark back to this video, hopefully, and say, hey, you know what? Dr. Barry said, hey, these types of symptoms could be concerning for a stroke. These types of symptoms could be concerning for seizures, could be some dementia. There are some things that I need to look for if I'm talking to a friend or a family member or a coworker and they black out and hit me with the blank face and don't say nothing. It's just me, right? So again, I'm yours truly. That is for me enough, and I would say enough, right? Enough talk from the political perspective, right? Because honestly, I don't want to talk about Mitch McConnell. Probably more do you want to hear me talk about Mitch McConnell. But as a physician, I know that a lot of my people in the Lunch and Learn community have questions that you want to make sure you're answered. And that's why I'm here. So I'm going to see you guys next week.